Now, on Enough Said, with KFAN Radio's Dan Barrero, attorney, and HoldingCourtPodcast.com's Ron Rosenbaum.
Well, Paisley Park is pretty much representative of everything I am musically.
The music was just so crazy from him, and it felt so cool that there was somebody so famous just, half a mile down the road.
It was really solid for him to come back to his roots.
Purple rain, purple rain.
I mean, the guy did his own thing. He beat to his own drum. He pushed back against systems that told him what he could and couldn't do, and he said, I'm going to do this anyway.
Welcome back to another edition of Enough Said. My name's Dan Barrero. I'm joined today by JG, Justin Guard, my partner on the radio. Thanks for coming.
Good to be here.
Filling in for Mr. Rosenbaum and Lori Fisher in the control booth as well. Lori?
Yeah, of course, we're going to start with losing a music legend. Prince passing away at the age of 57 years old on Thursday morning. He was found unresponsive at his Paisley Park studios in Chanhassen. The entire world mourning his death, especially us Minnesotans. Purple seems to be everywhere right now. Dan?
Yeah, I knew there was going to be a great amount of depth of emotion, but I guess I'm actually a little overwhelmed that it has been to the degree that the intensity has surprised me, in part because, he's not front and center musically right now, I don't think. And he was never a cuddly guy. And so I had a good reminder, though, of what I think this is about last night. We get home and after the radio show, and later that night, it was actually about 10 o'clock at night, my wife says, we should watch it. We really should watch Purple Rain tonight. And I said, come on, I'm late, it's tired, I go to sleep at 9:30. And we watched the whole thing. And, there's places where it's as cheesy now as it was then. There are other places where it's powerful. But more than anything else, what comes across and what you're reminded of, and I hadn't maybe thought about much, is how freaking talented he was. You see it in front of you again, the freshness of it then, the rawness of the talent, the brilliance of the performing as well, and you go, okay, yeah, that's why music moves people. We've talked about this before. It ain't no new revelation, I should say. And we saw that, I think we're still seeing it in the hours that follow.
You had your chance on VH1, MTV, and I think everybody was playing
Right.
Purple Rain last night, so you couldn't miss it. But Lori was talking about the tributes, and I think, did we underrate how popular he was worldwide?
I think we did.
I mean, any monument around the country was purple last night, whether it was the Eiffel Tower, Empire State Building, and what was going on in First Avenue was incredible. Traffic jams at 11 o'clock at night. They had concerts that were going on. They were letting people in for the dance party, and everybody was just cool hanging out in the streets. And I think they were there until 7 in the morning. There was 100 people at First Avenue, 7 o'clock this morning, still dancing. It was an incredible, a reminder of it, like you said, but an incredible day after an incredible tragedy.
Well, and we've all had our chance to talk to various people about him and about the musical legacy. And, we talked to Jimmy Jam yesterday, who basically grew up with him. And, Jimmy reminded me of why, in some ways, I liken him to Michael Jordan a little bit, because like Jordan, his talent was ridiculous. That he had as Jimmy said, the it from as long as he remembered him, going back to junior high school, okay? But there's this assumption that when you have that it, then it all is natural. You show up 2 minutes before a performance, and you're electric, and you've got that voltage, and you don't even have to try. But what we learned about both Michael, and we were learning once again about Prince, is they worked their craft. They were fundamentally sound. They were the first there, as the cliche goes for basketball practice, the last to leave, and that's a part of this story that should not be forgotten, that this guy was a worker who basically then took full advantage of what natural gifts he'd been given.
And because he was a worker, everybody else had to be a worker. And he wasn't just responsible for his own deal. He could play everything, right? Jimmy told us that. He said he played keyboard better than him. He said he played drums better than him. He didn't even play the drums, and he could play the drums better than anybody
else.
And so that brings everybody else's level up, right? Everybody in the band knows what the standard is, and he more or less practiced 24 hours a day. If he was awake, he was practicing. Or he was at the Chanhassen buy release, because everybody I've heard from, whether it's social media or comments on stories, everybody ran into him at the Chanhassen buy release basically in the bakery line. That was the place, and that was the other cool part that everybody's attached to here. he never left. And I think it matters everywhere to a hometown,
Right.
but it definitely matters here, right? We have fun with the one of us deal, but we saw it last night how much that mattered, and even today we're seeing how much that matters to Minnesotans.
I put it another way. He never left us, and he never dumped us.
Yes.
We feel like we always get dumped here, whether we really are or not. We've got that chip on our shoulder. I guess you could probably say it better than me because I know I'm not one of us.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of what he kept us connected. I mean, Don Shelby told us a story about how, he shows up for one of those late night events at Paisley Park, and who's performing with Prince? It's Miles Davis, George Clinton, and Mavis Staples with Prince. And you're saying, I'm not sure you can get four more talented, genius musicians together at the same time. And he's doing it here in Chanhassen, Minnesota, at this goofy compound that he built. And so he did leave a lot, and he didn't always live here. But I think that was part of why the connection is so emotionally strong here, is there's that sense that, and to a certain extent, he's part of the Jimmy Jam legacy. And so Jimmy Jam goes off on his own path, and he ends up producing who? With Terry Lewis, Janet Jackson. A couple Minneapolis kids are connected with another electric international act. And so we all feel, whether we're really a part of it or not, we feel in that sense connected.
Dan, we're going to have to leave it there. I would never say enough said when it comes to Prince, but we are going to move on. The Timberwolves announcing a new coach and president, Tom Thibodeau. It's been 27 years since he began his career with the Wolves, and now he's about to become the franchise's 12th coach after agreeing to a 5-year big money deal. Excited about this hire, Dan?
Well, we actually can link it a little bit to this extent that we were talking about connection. Prince kept us kind of connected to the music world in a way we would not have otherwise been, the whole Minneapolis-Sound. We have not been connected in any real way to pro basketball in 12 years or longer, basically. We've lived in our own nether basketball world that is irrelevant. This hiring makes us get connected again. Now, you got to deliver on the promise, but he's the coach that everybody wanted, the most viable, attractive coach out there. He's got the bona fides. There's no reason he shouldn't be successful here. And so that in a sense, we are now connected in a way we haven't been before. It's that one of our guests said, it's a big boy move by an organization that you don't associate with big boy moves, financially, in terms of all the commitments on all levels, and that's what should be encouraging to basketball fans who've been kind of craving this moment.
That's the biggest surprise, I think, for both of us, right? That when have we ever, number one, been a destination, which we can talk about, but when has the owner of the team said, I'm thinking big, and I'm not just thinking big, I'm going to act big. The search was swift, it was fast, and obviously they threw a lot of money at him, and they determined right away because they interviewed a lot of people in a short period of time.
Right.
He identified a coach that, New York would love to have him. The Lakers would love to have him.
The Lakers should love to if they don't.
Definitely, and he's here in Minneapolis, and we talked about Prince staying here. When has anybody from the outside come here and decided to come here and actually identified and said, that's the team I need to be with, that's the organization I need to be with? People should be excited. As you mentioned, there's no guarantees. And Minnesota fans are already worried about one of the players not liking him. Is Andrew Wiggins going to get along with him? Is Zach LaVine going to opt out? Is Karl Anthony Towns going to blow out his knee because Tibbs plays his players too long? This is not the time to worry about all that. You should enjoy having a seat at the big boy table.
And you hit on a really key point here. Behind the scenes, this team, unbeknownst to anybody in the media or anyplace else, was clearly doing its due diligence in a way that we assumed they weren't because they never have.
No.
Because Glenn Taylor says goofy things, and he hires idiots like David Kahn. And so we go, that can't be. And it turns out in this case, he clearly knew early he was going to make the move on Sam Mitchell. And this is it may sound cruel, but this is the way you have to do it in the big boy world if you want to end up with as big a prize as Thibodeau represents.
League-wide, everybody says the Wolves has a very bright future because of the young core and because of the draft pick this year. So they recognize this was a big opportunity to take full advantage of it. You might set yourself up for a decade of success if you got it right.
So coming up on Enough Said.
Although I think we also shouldn't turn this into social media is the problem. I mean, part of what obviously it needs to be discussed.
People disrespecting each other and challenging each other on social media to come together and settle their scores and their beefs with each other. And that's unacceptable.
Welcome back to Enough Said. St. Paul Police Chief Tom Smith says social media is playing a role in the recent explosion of gun violence in the city. This coming from a news conference with law enforcement, the city's mayor, and other community leaders. Get this, 9 people in the last week have been shot in St. Paul. Dan.
It's a brutal story. It's on so many levels, and we ain't going to fix it today because no one knows really how to fix it. And in this case, again, we're talking about some people completely caught in a crossfire, utterly innocent, just wrong place, wrong time, the worst possible story. This stuff is repeated over and over again. And, you know, the issue on the social media, it's odd because we were just earlier talking about Prince, and I think Twitter, in that sense, for that story, most of it, we thought was kind of pretty healthy and maybe even therapeutic, where people are just kind of exchanging stories and salutes. Some of it may be over the top, but overall pretty good. This is the other side of it. A world in which maybe once upon a time, if two of gangs were bitter with each other, I don't know what they used to do. You send notes? I don't know. We'll meet at the behind Public School 302, but it's a little less spontaneous. Okay, there's some layers. Now, instant world, you can start clashing, and it starts getting escalated almost immediately. And guess what? There's no answer. We're not getting rid of Twitter. We're not getting rid of Facebook. But now this is a new problem, obviously, that law enforcement people are saying are making their jobs already very difficult, making them even tougher, and making it more likely that somebody is caught in a crossfire.
And it's not just the people that are involved. When it's on social media, everybody's showing up, right? That's one of the problems that they're having. We're talking about 50 people, 75 people snapping your fingers, and they're all there. There's no more behind the pines, like you said, behind the school for a rumble. And I agree, Mayor Coleman has talked about they need more police presence, and I know they're going to. But they're not giving them any money for it. He's saying just whatever money you have, just rearrange it and figure it out. And the police chief, who we just heard from, says we need a lot more help. And like you said, that's not going to solve the problem. It's a bad combination of people that probably shouldn't have guns. A lot of young kids that we're talking about, 18, 19, 20, who probably don't even get the greater ramifications of it, and social media and mob mentality and flash mobs, basically. It's tough.
It's very tough, although I think we also shouldn't turn this into social media is the problem. I mean, part of what obviously it needs to be discussed, and again, there's no easy answer, is why are the triggers so sensitive that it can be escalated from two people arguing about whatever to let's go shoot each other, let's go kill each other. That's not about Twitter. That's going to rear its head no matter what. Sadly, maybe easier this way, but that's about, we're back to why is this among the possibilities of how we're going to settle whatever stupid grievance or grievances that we think we have. Let's go from verbally going after each other to next thing you know, killing each other. It's sick.
In a public place where there's a million other people there that are just trying to have a picnic, play at a park, play with their kids. There's kids all over the place in some of these scenarios. It's weird. It's just
we've
a
talked
weird deal.
about this on the radio a lot, too, that, again, the really tragic part is the number of people caught in these situations, if maybe not literally, but symbolically, where they just want to go to the park.
Exactly.
They just want to go from point A to point B, and their lives end up being terrorized day to day. There is not that peace of mind that, okay, I can go from this place to this place and feel pretty comfortable that I'm going to be okay. Those are the people, that's the toll that has to take on your average rube who is, I said, just trying to live. That's incalculable.
Yeah, it's all terrible. Let's move on. Enough said on that. Next up, a Chanhassen mom accused of insulting coaches and players, banned from going to her own kids' sporting events. You have a high school hockey coach in Stillwater resigned because verbal attacks from parents. And then you have the same deal from a football coach in Worthington. Dan, are parents getting worse, or are we just more sensitive these days?
It's a good question. I think it's some of both.
Both.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that, there's still not enough that we know about this situation in Chanhassen, I don't think, because the officials behind the alleged suspension, or whatever you want to call the double secret probation she's on, say, well, we're not going to get too specific because we are going to keep this private. But I'm not sure I'm buying her as the victim. I'm not sure I'm buying her as the martyr. The thing about now every message she sent out had this who's in left field, even though she claims the original question was an innocent question. It might have been, but there seems to be some smoke here. And part of the reason that a lot of these groups, as you well know, have maybe overreacted is they're worn down by the delusional parents who turn what's supposed to be a pretty healthy, happy activity into Armageddon. And I don't know if it's because a lot of them, it's more costly in some cases where they're spending a lot more money. So they feel like, well, if I'm spending a lot more money, by God, I'm gonna get my butt in there and stand up for my kid or not. But it's a mess.
Stillwater one is interesting because it's an administration that's gone quiet on the parents, and we see that a lot too. The administrators are saying we're not going with it. But she's done enough to be on the radar, but I'm not sure she's done enough to be banned. We don't know. It was a weird story, and I don't think it's been fleshed out terribly well. We don't know all the details, but what we do know is that I agree with you. I'd rather overreact if I'm an organization because I think Stillwater underreacted with what was going on with some of their parents, getting in his wife's face, the coach that resigned. Parents can go crazy if you don't stop them. Now, did they overreact? Maybe, but in 2016, I'm erring on that side.
Well, and I do think this stuff is covered more, and that may be an inaccurate perception that it's actually a lot worse than it used to be, because these kind of stories in the past, they weren't considered news. No. Now, sadly, they're news.
Coming up on Enough Said.
Should people be held accountable like that, a public figure like that, for saying what he wants to say?
I think not, but again, any employer has the right to set the rules.
Welcome back to Enough Said. ESPN analyst and former All-Star pitcher Curt Schilling is out. The network fired him for what he shared on Facebook. He was responding to transgender people using bathrooms that don't correspond with their birth genders. He shared someone else's post of a man wearing a wig and women's clothing that said, "Let him in to the restroom with your daughter, or else you're a narrow-minded, judgmental, unloving, racist bigot who needs to die." He had been on the network since 2010. Should we care what Schilling has to say, Dan?
I don't.
Me neither.
See, I'm not as there's how many people in the United States of America? I don't know what is. We're in the hundreds of millions. How many are in media? I think 100 million of them, just about by this point. I'm not that offended. I've learned to say there's not going to be unanimity of opinion, and there's going to be idiots on everything. Now, where ESPN may have had a point was if we've been down this road with Schilling before. So if they'd have said, look, we love you, and we know you like to get out of your lane a little bit, but we've had it kind of enough with it. We want to end this. Then it's their brand. They can do with it what they want. What I don't like, though, is I don't think you can have it both ways. If the issue is about getting out of your lane across the board, be consistent with it, but don't say it's okay to get out of your lane if you express the quote-unquote right opinion on a given issue. In other words, if he just said maybe about Target, hey, good for them, would he have gotten in trouble for that? Probably not.
Probably not.
And so we're back to be consistent on the stay in your lane or not stay in your lane, and don't make it about what the most popular or quote-unquote right opinion is, I think.
There's a lot of people that agree with Curt Schilling. I bet if you go to Facebook, he got a lot of likes on that post, right? Whatever you think about it, I'm sure there are a lot of people. Now, what do you think about, is there a distinction for a public figure like that? He didn't say it on ESPN. He didn't say it on Sunday Night Baseball. On Baseball Tonight, he didn't go out of his lane there. This is his own personal Facebook account. Now, you can argue that the lines are grayed because he's a public figure, but should people be held accountable like that, a public figure like that, for saying what he wants to say?
I think not, but again, any employer has the right to set the rules. The question on ESPN and on many of these is whether they're consistent. And they're not. They tend to be inconsistent, I think, in large measure on the basis of how much money does this guy make us? Well, you know what? We're righteous, but we're not quite that righteous. And, I will also say, if Schilling's trying to make a cogent argument about this issue, I'm not sure the art that I think he liked or whatever, I don't think he came up with it, but he sort of checked off on it, is going to be the way to start any kind of a civil, rational discussion on who should go to what bathroom.
It won't be the last time we hear from Curt Schilling. It already isn't on this issue. He's already tweeted some other stuff about it in the interim here. But Curt Schilling, whether we want to hear him or not, thinks everybody wants to hear him on everything.
Well,
right?
and again, the irony is we tend to rip commentators and analysts who are kind of boring and never surprise us. And then when we hear something that surprises us and outrages us, it's off with his head. I don't think they had to fire him, but they may have had an agreement, like I said, where I said, we've been down this road too often. This is exhausting, sort of like the woman in Chanhassen. You've worn us down. We just can't keep going down this particular road.
Time for the lightning round. Major daytime talk show drama. Michael Strahan announces he is leaving Kelly and Michael to be full-time at Good Morning America. Kelly blindsided and not happy. Dan.
I'm devastated, and I feel for Kelly. Life is tough. When you're Kelly Ripa,
$20 million a year.
Is that what she makes?
Right around
in that
there.
range, and they didn't go to her first. In all honesty, egos at this level, I'm not exactly surprised, but I have a hard time getting too worked up over it, to be honest. She's going to be okay, and I have a hunch she's going to go back to that show because that's a lot of money.
If Ripa and Strahan can't get along, though. What hope
what's
does the
left
rest
in
of us
America
have,
with
really?
the rest of the world or America? Sure.
She's been gone since the announcement.
I
So,
saw
you
that.
know.
Yeah.
Are they really going to keep him until
But
September?
she's coming back.
That's what
Lori,
they
don't
want
you
to say.
She's
think?
on vacation.
Vacation.
Harriet Tubman
See, you
will be added to
sensationalize
the
the story.
$20 bill, replacing President Andrew Jackson. More women expected to be on currency to follow. Justin.
Be careful. Lori's listening.
She's setting me up. Yeah, I think she's setting me up. I think this is the greatest decision ever made. I feel a little bit for Andrew Jackson, though, although he was kind of misplaced on the 20. He was the common guy.
Hamilton got saved, right? Because I thought it was going to be Alexander
It was
Hamilton.
supposed to be the 10, right?
And then I don't know. Does he have a lobby that
He
came in and
must.
saved him?
Because Jackson was the poor
He got
president,
dumped.
right?
Yes.
I mean, he should have been on the penny, to be honest. The 20 never really made sense, but yeah, we'll go with Tubman.
I think we'd all agree it's about time.
Yes.
It's time to. This doesn't have to be called political correctness. It's probably a good idea, right?
It is a good idea. Target makes a progressive move, encouraging transgender employees and customers to use the restroom and their fitting rooms that correspond with their gender identity. As you know, just a lot of talk about bathrooms right now. Dan.
Too much talk about bathrooms for me, to be honest. Given, I think we were talking about 0.3% of the population. I don't care which bathroom you're going to go to.
Just go.
In fact,
yeah, I'm with you.
I've said before, let's just open whatever you want to be and go to whatever bathroom you want. Let's just have unisex bathrooms. Let's not have any, because allegedly we had designations for a reason. Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't need them anymore. Maybe we shouldn't have them. And let's just go wherever you want to go.
People magazine names Jennifer Aniston the world's most beautiful woman for 2016. She's 47, and if you remember, well, this is her second time being honored. And if you remember last year, it was Sandra Bullock, who was 50, and it was her second time being honored. Justin.
This is another setup.
Well, there's
man.
still hope for Dan.
There's
still hope for
uncalled
Dan.
for.
If people of your vintage are being, what Jennifer Aniston doesn't realize is she's actually been my most beautiful woman since 1994 when Friends started. So I've never left J-Ann. I don't know if we abbreviated to that, but can't argue with Sandra or Jennifer.
No,
Aniston.
and I think the idea is it kind of cool to go away from the
22-year-old
ingenue, which isn't a bad thing. But let's face it. I mean, very few men or women are as beautiful as Jennifer Aniston is at that age.
At any age.
Yeah, that's correct.
I would say at any age.
We have to end it with the death of Prince. We are all mourning what has happened this week. Favorite Prince memory or song, Dan?
I'll go memory. December 31, 1982, Dallas, Texas. Ushered in the new year with Prince at Reunion Arena, an arena that's not even there anymore. And little did I know, I'd end up following him to his hometown. It was a terrific show, and then it was still fresher for me. And as we talked about, he just, he made his own style of music, taking from a lot of genres, and he made it his own. That's the beauty of it.
Everybody loves the halftime show that he did at the Super Bowl,
Hard to
but the halftime show press conference, I think, is getting underrated in that he played a concert at the press conference with his band. He took 2 or 3 questions, interrupted questions to continue playing. No one's done it before. No one's done it since.
And scarier than that, he asked media members to get up and dance.
He did.
Think how scary that would have been if they actually, because there are very few media members that can actually dance. I know, because I was one of them.
That's when he started telling people, don't bring your phones to my shows.
That's
He
true.
didn't want people seeing that again and again and again. They were terrible dancers.
Gone, but never.